This video is going to introduce Visual Studio, and hopefully at the end of this you'll be able to start creating programs. Now, you've used Visual Studio with console applications. What we're going to do this time is use Windows Forms instead. The first part is very similar. We still want a new project, so we click New Project, just as you have done. Again, you need a sensible name, so Windows Application 3 doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm going to call mine Quiz Program. So with a sensible name, I now need to choose the correct type of project. Now this year we've been using console application. That's what all our programs have been using. Now, however, we're going to use Windows Form application. So make sure this is selected, make sure you have a sensible name, and then click OK. This will go through the same process and open up a new project. Now the project looks different. The top right Solution Explorer, where I am now, this is the same. You'll notice I called it Quiz Program. Here it is. Now inside this, the whole program uses forms. Now I've got one form at the moment called Form 1. You can see that in the middle. So this Solution Explorer we'll probably use this a lot more than we have done for the console applications, but up here is where you can select between forms. We'll see that as we go on. Underneath that is a properties box. Now if I click on the form, you'll see there are properties here. Now all forms, all components, controls have properties on Windows Forms. These are what we use to change how a form looks or how a control behaves, and eventually when we get onto coding we'll be writing code that modifies these properties. So these are very important. This little box down here is quite useful because you can look through and see what properties each object has. So I can show you changing one. If we look back in the middle up here, we can see at the moment this form is called Form 1. Now you probably think that's quite a bad name, doesn't really explain what this form is about. So if I go into the properties and I go down to the appearance box, I get to the text. If I click in here, I'll call this Quiz Form. I'll just click out of that, and you'll notice the text now says Quiz Form, and on the form itself up in the middle it says Quiz Form. Now these properties, if we look again down at the properties box, the properties are broken down into categories. You'll see the first is called accessibility, then we have appearance, and if we move down we get to behavior, data, design, focus, layout, etc. You can have a look through those if you want. This is just to help you find the properties you want. So if you're looking for a property that has something to do with the design of the form, you look in this section. Okay, so that's the properties. This is the Solution Explorer. Here in the middle is our workspace. This is where we're going to design the forms and create the code. We'll look at this a lot more as we go through creating this quiz program. But before we do that, we need to look on the left. Now at the moment you probably don't have this list down the left hand side. You probably have something that looks like this. But down the left you'll see it has the toolbox. If you hover over the toolbox and then go up to the pin and pin it, you should then have this list. At the top is a category of common controls. If you've got all Windows Forms open, just close it, so you've got the common controls. Now these are the things that you can put onto your form. So for example, you can put labels onto your form to add text. You can put buttons on your form so the user can click. You can put a checkbox, you can put progress bars, all sorts of different things, and you can have a long look through this list if you want. But in later videos we're going to look at adding some of these controls to the form. So at the moment that's just a very simple introduction to Visual Studio and Windows Forms. When you're creating the project, it's a very similar procedure. A new project, give it a sensible name, but make sure you click Windows Forms. When the project opens, we have this screen that we have in front of us now with the Solution Explorer, the properties to the bottom right, We've got the middle section, which is the workspace, and then hopefully you've got the tools down the left hand side. The next video will look at adding some basic controls onto the form and making the form do something.